Hey, I'm Wolf from Mammoth WVH.
And I'm Marc LaBelle from Dirty Honey, and you're watching Heavy Consequence.
When this co-headlining tour was announced, Mammoth WVH and Dirty Honey, a lot of fans were excited. I think the reason being is that, you're kind of the two of the rising rock acts that are carrying the torch for authentic, down and dirty rock music. And wanted to talk about how the pairing came about.
Yeah, we it's kind of a match made in heaven because we have the same agent. So it just kind of seemed like a sort of obvious thing. We had tested the waters in a way in the past. We played a co-headliner. I think it was in South Carolina, was it? Yep. And then we played a couple festivals where we on the bill together, and it just seems right.
Cool. And was there a mutual respect for one another? Were you?
Oh no, I hate them.
Yeah, he's terrible.
In all seriousness, were you familiar with each other's work? And
oh yeah, it's just it's clear they're one of the, we're two. We both just had our first albums come out this year, and it's just we're here doing rock good.
Thank God, huh?
And both of you are coming off very high profile opening support gigs. Dirty Honey supported Black Crowes on a huge tour. And then Wolfgang Mammoth supported Guns N' Roses on a tour. Obviously Wolfgang, you toured with Van Halen, so you know what those large scale shows are all about, but touring with a band like Guns N' Roses, especially coming off your first album, what does it do for your confidence? How does it build you as an artist? And then the same for you, Marc. If Wolf, you want to tackle that first, and then Marc, Marc, you can speak on touring with.
Yeah, in a way, it was a wonderful way to start because it's sort of a trial by fire. You're being thrown to the lions every night because the Guns audience is notoriously, at least when we were on there, they would tell us that they're notoriously not very receptive to openers. So when it started going really well, it was like, oh shit, this is, we're actually doing it. It was kind of a dream. So I think it was a really great way to kind of cut your teeth at such a ridiculous level and we played baseball stadiums. I never could have imagined. It is ridiculous.
And Marc, what about for you opening for Black Crowes?
Yeah, it was, I've said before, the very first show in Nashville, we played there 2 nights in a row. And the first show for me was just really uncomfortable. It was awful. We came off a headlining tour where, anywhere from 1,000 people or whatever were coming to clubs and, knowing every song and singing every word and going to an amphitheater that's maybe a quarter full when you step out on stage. So that initial surge of energy that you normally feel walking out just isn't there. And you have to figure out a way to fight through it. And then not only just get through those initial moments, but learn how to work a crowd that doesn't know anything about you and is just judging you from head to toe. So, got some good advice along the way after that first night about just going out there and doing your thing and having fun. And that little advice changed my mindset for the rest of the tour. And I wound up having a blast and really appreciated not only having the opportunity to gain new fans, but I started to really enjoy the challenge because it almost became surgical knowing when they're going to turn from just casual concert goers to fans. It was kind of interesting to notice it.
And one more thing on the GNR tour, those last 2 nights, you got to play Paradise City with the band on stage. Well, what was that experience like?
Absolutely insane. I was so nervous beforehand, man. When I had heard that Axl was like, "Hey, Axl wants you to play Paradise City with everybody on the last 2 nights, and they want you to be a part of the bow and everything." It was like, okay. I basically I just held up in the bus on any free time, and I learned just perfectly. Like there were moments where like I kind of only listened to the right side of the headphones to hear Izzy's part, so I could play it literally perfect to every little thing he did. And I wasn't happy until it was just so ingrained, because we only had one little sound check. But it went so well because I didn't know that they wanted me to do backing vocals too. And right as we did it, I just started singing the high harmony that I always hear in the beginning of the song. And I didn't realize that they hadn't been doing that the whole time. So when I did it afterwards, Duff was like, "Oh yeah, there's a harmony there, isn't there? Right? That sounds great, man." It was like, "Okay, I think this will be all right."
I guess there was a pretty big gap when Duff was in the band before, and then when he joined, so maybe he forgot about it along the way.
Yeah,
that's cool. And both of you, both Mammoth and Dirty Honey, both have had early success at rock radio. And Dirty Honey was the first unsigned band to have a #1 song on mainstream rock. Mammoth, 2 singles off the bat, #1 on rock radio. What can you tell me about, what that's meant for you in terms of, growing your audience and the impact of, getting those hit singles out on rock radio early?
I think when it came to Distance, the very first song that went #1, while it was incredible and gratifying, I think people could have argued that it was a fluke, considering the subject matter and everything surrounding it. So it wasn't until Don't Back Down going #1 that really put it into perspective that what I'm doing is like I'm doing it. Like people like this song because it's my song, not because it's about anything else. Mm-hmm. And that was really the big eye-opening moment where it was like, shit, I think I can do it.
Cool. And Mark, for you, just getting that hit on radio, like right off the bat, what did it mean for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was a culmination of years of hard work. And like he said, just the affirmation that people are appreciating what you're doing, and more bigger picture, just ready for rock and roll again. I think I've been very vocal about like rock and roll sort of lost its way there for the last decade or more, and I'm very happy that we're getting back to guitar driven music with great riffs, great songs, and it was just crazy. I mean, we had literally conversations about KLOS before we released any music. Like, why don't we try and get KLOS to play our song? And for them to just organically pick it up without anybody doing anything. Their morning show producer just found the song on his drive into work the day it came out and played it for like, however many people listen to the station in LA. It's a lot. It completely took us by surprise and was like just a nice exhale of feeling appreciated for what you've been trying to do for so long. So, yeah.
And Wolf, obviously your dad meant a lot to a lot of people, including all of us rock fans. And but he meant more to you than any one of us, obviously, as your father from a personal level. To experience,
some people don't realize that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who don't even think that. So it's nice that you said that.
No, obviously, but to have all the success in your kind of first year as a solo artist, the album scoring high on the Billboard, the #1 songs, touring with Guns N' Roses. I wanted to ask you, how has it been achieving the success in a year that's obviously been so difficult on a personal level for you?
It's a mixed bag. Like, while it's overall an unbelievably humbling and incredible experience, it'll never reach where it could have been had my dad been here to witness it. But with everything going on, it's like, I know he'd be so fucking proud. Like he'd just be so jazzed. So it's that sort of duality where it's like, I wish he was here to be able to see it, but I know I know exactly how happy he'd be if he were here.
Yeah. and we know how much of an influence he had on you. But I wanted to ask Mark, because obviously your music is rooted in that classic 70s rock. You know, there's Aerosmith influence, there's AC/DC, there's Led Zeppelin, there's obviously some Van Halen as well. And you're going out on tour with Wolfgang, and Wolfgang was a member of Van Halen. And I just wanted to know, what did Van Halen mean to you as a young rocker kind of growing up?
I mean, yeah, it's one of my favorite bands. I had every one of the Van Halen records. I had two bands. I had their entire catalog. Aerosmith was one and Van Halen was the other. But Van Halen 1 is like one of my favorite records of all time. I think Feel Your Love Tonight is like literally one of my if there's top 10 rock songs that I'm picking, that's in there. And it's, you know, a B-side, but it's a great song. You know, and Van Halen, honestly, they kind of, I've heard David talk about this recently, just they were really influenced by a lot of the doo-wop stuff back in their day, the pop music, and they sort of mixed it with some blues and some harder riffs. And that's kind of what we're doing. Like I am not above pop songs. There's, you know,
if it's good, it's good, man.
If it's good, it's good. And a great song is a great song. I don't care what it's encased in musically. So yeah, they're a huge part of why we do this. And certainly John, our guitarist, was heavily influenced by Eddie, and Corey loved Alex. I mean, that's his number one influence. So they're a big part of why we're here.
And you just mentioned David, and you know, David Lee Roth recently announced that his upcoming Vegas residency would be his final shows ever. And I wanted to hear from both of you. Obviously, Wolf, from a more personal level, being in a band with him, you know, and then Mark as a rock singer, you know, maybe Wolf, you can offer a little insight to maybe part of him that maybe the public doesn't know about David Lee Roth. And then Mark, just what he meant to you as a front man, as a rock front man.
Yeah, I mean, Dave is he's very much a one of a kind sort of guy. You know, we don't really talk, if ever. You know, we were always cordial on tour together, but it's not like I've spoken to him at all in the last 6 years. But I mean, he's fucking David Lee Roth. You know, he can, like, I'm so happy for him and for everything that he's accomplished. And he's just a phenomenal, and, you know, he'll always be one of the best.
And Mark, for you, just as a lead singer of a rock band, you know, what he's meant to you.
Yeah, I mean, man, the stuff he put on those records is absolutely timeless. And that's what, you know, I think we both somewhat get coined as like the new wave of classic rock. Man, it's just rock, man. Like, and it's timeless rock. And that's why we love everything that we love, whether it's Van Halen or Zeppelin or Skinner or whatever, you know, take your pick. It's all timeless. And I think David's voice was so unique for that time. And the songs were so awesome. It just captured something really special. And that's, like I said, it's one of my favorite artists of all time. So it's a big influence on me. There's no doubt.
And you both released your debut albums this year, both Dirty Honey and both Mammoth WVH. And obviously you've got a ways to go to promote those. But Wolf, I know I heard you say in maybe an earlier interview that you have loads of material that, you know, didn't make the album. And just wanted to know where you guys are in terms of, have you been working on new music, or are there plans for new music in the near future, looking for ways to fit them in between touring?
Near future, no. Mm-hmm. I'm really focused on touring. I think this next year is going to be it's looking to be a very tour heavy year. But when I do get the time, I can't wait to get back in the studio. I have many ideas I've written since, and there are many ideas that were left out and left over from the original sessions that weren't left out because they weren't good enough. It was just, we didn't have the space. So I'm looking forward to revisiting that material and revisiting some ideas I've made since.
How many songs was your record, Wolf?
Gosh, 13 or 14.
Yeah. Okay. I remember it being up there.
Yeah, it's long.
Yeah. But yeah, I think where I'm definitely feeling like it's time for me. It just feels like time to be in writing mode for whatever reason. And I just got home yesterday morning, so I'm literally, as soon as we get done with this, I'm going to be plugging in and playing and working on stuff. And that never stops though. I mean, I was walking around New York City over the weekend, and I was just like, something pops into your head and goes into a memo bank on your phone, and it's there forever, and you better go back and revisit it. But usually the good ones seem to stick in your head for whatever reason. And you just wind up singing along to it when you pick up a guitar one day, and that just seems to make sense. So,
yeah. Is there any added pressure going into a sophomore album? They always talk about the sophomore album being the toughest one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have all the time in the world to plan for the first one, and not nearly as much for the second. So either you've got the goods or you don't. You just got to kind of keep relying on what got you to that first one, and just keep on being yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, especially for rock and roll, like there's always got to be just the slightest tinge of evolution for the audience to maintain their interest and not do the same thing over and over again. Unless, of course, you're like AC/DC, who just does that thing so kick ass that it doesn't matter. They could do it forever. But yeah, I think, Van Halen's a classic example of that for me. Introducing keys is like a major decision, and it like changed rock and roll forever. So we just got to figure out what our place is in that.
Yeah, when you look back at it, like you're wearing a Led Zeppelin shirt and then Van Halen, like it always amazes me how those bands like just put out those albums one after another. And like Sabbath too, like those first four, like it's insane. Like those came out like in 5 years, they released 6 albums. And I mean, Van Halen and Zeppelin too, like it's crazy. And it's a different era now. I mean, you feel now that you have a little more time to work on an album, to get it out there in this day and age.
You have a lot of time for sure. But it's not, we certainly don't have the financial, a label used to be able to throw a couple $1 million at the recording of a record, and all that studio time to experiment in the studio in a world-class studio is expensive. There's no doubt about it. So, we don't really use the studio as a songwriting tool, maybe as much as we should. I would like to experiment with that on this next one. Obviously it's going to cost some more money, which is fine. But, I think that's something we're looking forward to checking out. But yeah, they had no problem going into the studio for months at a time. And
people like to harken back to that era and compare to today, but there's no comparison. It's lightning in a bottle. Like they're legendary for a reason. People loved to, while I was taking my time and living life and figuring out who I was, making the first album, people love to throw in my face. It's like, well, when your dad was your age, he had already done 3 albums. And it's like, that's interesting. We're completely different fucking people. We operate differently. And also, that was lightning in a bottle. Look at the Beatles. Like they only were around for that small amount of time, and they got all that shit done. That's because they're fucking legends.
Yeah.
That's not normal.
It's funny. I just, not to bring up Stern again, but McCartney was just on, and I was like, George Harrison, Ringo, McCartney, and Lennon were all in that band, and they're all literally brilliant songwriters, and all after the Beatles went on to have some of their best work as solo artists. And it's like crazy that they even got together. It's insane.
Yeah. It was amazing. And finally, I wanted to ask you one more. Thank you for your time. What can fans expect when they go see Dirty Honey and Mammoth WVH on this co-headlining tour in winter 2022?
I think they should get ready to see the sickest rock tour to start the year off.
You're going to see the 2 best rock bands going in 2022. 2 new rock bands with a lot to prove, with a lot of, we're taking the pressure of people saying rock and roll is dead. And we're taking that and we're going to alleviate it all on the first night.
I'm kind of pumping this little thing up there.
Yeah, exactly. That's going right to Gene Simmons' quote right there.
Exactly.